Hello everybody, it's me, Riffraff Hornhelm, and I'm back again with another presentation from the Dwarven Vault. And today we have a monster review. And today we're going to take a look at the Giant Slug. And it's the Giant Slug as brought to us from the original monster manual for use with Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, or what's typically called 1E, and Basic, and all the ones before that. So the Giant Slug. Well, it's a giant slug. It's very large, like 30 feet long type of thing. It's huge. And it has 12 hit dice. That's a lot of hit dice. And it has a relatively low armor class. In other words, the armor class, it's easy to hit. It has like an 8 armor class. Now, the giant slug causes damage just by where it goes. It leaves behind its slime trail, which is corrosive, and it will destroy things, even like rock and so forth, over time. It makes a big mess wherever it goes. Let's face it. And of course, their famous or most famous trick is they can spit acid. Now, they can spit it up to 60 feet with about 50% accuracy. They can spit further than that, but for every 10 feet, it goes down another 10% in accuracy until it's 0% chance of hitting something. But that does a lot of damage. And though that lot of damage only starts with 1 to 12 points of damage for the hit by acid, and though they do not speak about this in the book, when I've used these, if you get hit by the acid, it continues to do damage. Okay? It reduces every round thereafter till it stops, but if you're already hit with the acid, it continues to eat away at you until you wash it off. And I really feel strongly that's the way it should be played. Just getting hit by this and taking one whack of damage is not appropriate given the type of damage this creature does. Now, as a slug, they have the ability to squeeze and shape their body, and even though they're a large creature, they can often squeeze their way through very tiny spaces in relation to the size of their body. And it's because of the flexibility of their body, which is pretty cool. Now, that flexibility also comes with a penalty for attackers. It cannot be damaged by blunt weapons. So your clerics and their mace, or your dwarf and their hammer, they're not going to be able to do any damage. Sharp-edged weapons, no problem. Magic, also no problem. Standard resistance. Animal intelligence, neutral. Nothing difficult on that side of it. Now, in terms of where you find them, they tend to be in dank and dismal outdoor settings, oftentimes in things like ruins and whatnot. They're somewhat flexible, not just their bodies, but in terms of the places they hang out. It does have to be a warmer climate. Now it's a slug, and I know this question is going to come up. Does it take any extraordinary damage from salt? Well, according to the book, no. It's not mentioned at all. In real terms, yeah, they do. And since this is supposed to be an analog of something real, I would, and I have, allowed my players to do damage to it if they have a substantial amount of salt. Now remember, this is a very large creature. So sprinkling salt on it is not going to make it shrivel up and die unless you have one hell of a salt shaker, right? So the giant slug is not a bad creature. It doesn't move very fast. You can certainly outrun it. The spitting acid is nasty. The fact that wherever it goes, it leaves this corrosive trail behind is nasty, but it's also a clue if you're in a dungeon and you run across a trail like that, is that there is a good possibility that there's a giant slug nearby, especially if it's fairly recent gooey stuff. So, of course, do us dwarves, do we run into giant slug? Yeah, because they do hang out in underground places, and sometimes they'll work their way into, like, the outer ruins of an old dwarven city, and then we got to go get rid of the thing. It's not impossible to kill, but we have to send in guys with axes and crossbows and so forth, and of course some of our mages. We can't send any of our people in with hammers. That just doesn't work. And of course, we have to be very careful to stay away from its mouth. Now, because it has this raspy tongue in the mouth, it's also very good at burrowing, even through like hard packed dirt and so forth. But it can't get through rock. Thank goodness. Otherwise, we might be in some serious trouble. So yes, we do run into these. They are something that we instantly look to eradicate if we find one. Fortunately, you don't generally find more than one at a time. Now, of course, in the gaming world, it's a little bit different. So we went out to the Hornhelm community, the greater Hornhelm community, and said, hey, what about the giant slug? What can you tell us, DMs, players? Tell us what you think here. And the DMs came back and said, this is kind of a fun creature. It's not easy to kill, though it generally doesn't do that much damage to the party. It's also a fun creature to put in an area where there is more delicate treasures and so forth, and kind of let it ruin some of it. But they definitely had a positive opinion of the giant slug, and they gave it a ranking on an encounter basis of 5 to 6. I was a little surprised it was that high, but really, 12 hit dice, it's not an easy creature to deal with, and it's not small. So yeah, okay, I guess I can live with that. In talking to the players about it, they didn't rank it as high. Happens every once in a while. They ranked it more as a 4 to a 5. They said they weren't that hard to kill, and underground, the biggest thing they had to worry about was that they could get away and squeeze through someplace before they could finish them off, and they'd have to worry about them coming back later. So this is an interesting creature, and it's one that you should definitely consider using if you have the right circumstances for it in your dungeon. Once again, it's just a kind of a mundane creature writ large with an extra power. So that, my friends, is the giant slug. We hope you found today's presentation to be interesting, educational, amusing, all that kind of good stuff. If you did, please be so kind as to leave us a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't. Share it with your friends. Drop us a comment. But by all means, come back and see us again real soon. We thank you so very much for your kind support. Take care, everyone, and remember, dwarves rock!